this is my first time up here.
I think you will.
Okay.
It does. I don't understand that, but my volume right on too, not to get the screeching. Okay, we are live.
Okay. Good morning and Happy New Year to everyone. This is our first meeting of 2021 and all are welcome. Pardon?
Okay, thanks.
You on now?
Yeah.
Okay. So first is the call to order. And then we will have a move by Member Creaser, second by Member Quinn. Be it resolved that Committee of Adjustment agenda dated January 11th, 2021 be adopted. All those in favor? That's carried. And before I start, I would just like to introduce, we have a new planner too, and his name is Sam Sojathe, and he comes from the district. And that's so welcome, Sam, and that I know you'll be a real asset to the township. Are there any declarations of interest? Seeing none. Moved by Member Green, second by Member Bosworth. Be it resolved that the minutes dated December 14, 2020 be adopted and approved as circulated. Any questions or comments? All those in favor? Okay, thank you. And Andrea, would you like to?
Morning, everyone. Welcome. Oh. That volume's got to come down.
Okay, go ahead.
Okay, thank you. It's required that I make a few statements and then I'll explain the procedures of the hearing. The electronic is being held in accordance with Section 238 of the Municipal Act 2001 due to the COVID-19 pandemic. The members of the Committee of Adjustment present are Chair Alan Edwards, members Joe Quinn, Lisa Grogan Green, Rob Bosemworth, and Sharon Creaser. And I can confirm that we have a quorum. The members of Township staff present are Derek Hammond, CAO, David Pink, Development Services and Environmental Sustainability, Bryce Sharp, Manager Planning, Caitlin Walker, Planner 1, Sam Sojathe, Planner 2, Wesley Clown, Planning Consultant from MHBC, Lori Forbes, our Recording Secretary, Jane Sieber, Planning Technician, and myself, Andrew Glazier, Secretary-Treasurer. Public input on this January 11th, 2021 agenda was invited at planning@muskokalakes.ca. It should be noted, the motions have been pre-populated with random movers and seconders to expedite the meeting. When it is time to vote, members shall physically raise their hand until the chair has confirmed the vote. If the vote is unclear, a verbal vote shall be recorded. This is not considered a recorded vote. Now I'll just explain the hearing of the hearing process. The planner will provide an explanation and purpose of the application, the date notice was circulated, and will present any submissions received. Committee will then hear from the applicant or the applicant's agent if they wish to add any information. Please provide your name, mailing address, and postal code for our records. Committee will hear from those in support of the application and those in opposition to the application. Again, please provide your name, mailing address, and postal code. Committee will then hear the applicant or the applicant's agent respond to any questions or concerns raised. Committee will then have the opportunity to ask questions of the applicant or staff. Committee will debate the application and make a decision based on the information presented at the hearing. It must be noted the chair has a vote on each application and can participate in the discussion. There is a 20-day appeal period from the date of decision. In case of a minor variance application, a building permit is not available until after the appeal period and no appeals are received. When you are present at the hearing, please provide us your name, mailing address, and any presentation is limited to 5 minutes unless otherwise permitted by the committee. Please note the resolutions are automatically written in the positive to assist in completing decisions, as opposed to writing out each resolution. This does not in any way mean an application is going to be approved. And just one last thing, please take down the pink sign that was posted advertising the meeting. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And the first application is B 2420 ML Beswick, and that is Mr. Crown.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. That's correct. So as you noted, the first application,
Excuse me, can hardly hear you there.
I'll try to get a little bit closer to the microphone. Hopefully you can hear me now, Mr. Chairman.
No, we still can't hear you.
I can hear him loud and clear.
No,
I don't have my mute on, Mr. Chairman. Hopefully you can hear me now.
no, it's very, very weak.
I'm not sure. Can the
Can
other
you turn your
members?
sound up some?
I can certainly try.
Mr. Chair,
That's a little bit better.
I can hear him perfectly well. Perhaps it's something that
I can hear him perfectly well.
I can't hear at all.
I can hear him.
Mr. Chairman, can you hear me now?
Yeah, okay, that's better.
Okay, I will try to speak loudly, although it's not my normal. So if I drift away back to my normal volume levels, certainly let me know.
Thank you.
Again, thank you, Mr. Chairman. The first application is provisional consent application B2420 under the name Beswick. The property is known municipally as 1114 Halls Road, unit number 4. The application sketch is provided at page 34 of the committee's agenda. The application is a provisional consent to sever one new 2.27 acre waterfront lot on Lake Rosso and create a new common driveway with a right-of-way for both the severed and the retained lot. The retained lot, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee, would have an area of 2.1 acres. The severed lot would contain the existing cottage on the subject property, while the retained lot would contain the existing bunkie and the existing dock. Mr. Chairman, members of committee, the notice was provided in accordance with the Planning Act on December 18th, 2020, and the requirements of the Planning Act with respect to notice have been satisfied. In response to the notice, the committee has received the following comments and/or reports. You do have the detailed staff planning report dated January 11th. The Public Works Department has advised as of January 4th that a new civic address will be required and an entrance permit will also be required. The Building Department advises they have no comments. And you have a letter dated January 7th from the District Municipality of Muskoka stating that the district would not be opposed to the approval of the application, provided the appropriate development control techniques are used to conserve valuable thermal cover, deer feeding areas, and movement corridors. Notice of the decision is requested. Mr. Chairman, members of the committee, as previously noted, you do have our detailed planning report, which includes our review and analysis of the relevant plans and policies with respect to this application, as well as our analysis and opinion with respect to the application as well. If the committee is to approve the application, we have recommended 6 conditions for your consideration, which are on the page 22 of your agenda, which is the first page of the staff report. Mr. Chairman, that concludes my presentation. Hopefully we're able to hear all of it.
Thank you very much, Mr. Crown. Is the applicant or applicant's agent here wishing to speak on this?
The agent.
Agent? Okay.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I think it seems that I'm off my unmute, and I think I'm now on video as well. So hopefully
Yeah.
everyone can see me.
Thank you.
I'd like to thank the committee for having the hearing scheduled today. As noted, my name is Rick Hunter, and I'm with Planscape at 104 Kimberley Avenue in Bracebridge, postal code P1L1Z8, and I'm the planning consultant for David and Don Beswick, the owners of the property. I'm going to provide a very brief review. I'm going to go old school and not try to superimpose a PowerPoint presentation into this fairly complicated approach. I also don't propose to repeat anything that Mr. Crown has noted in his presentation or go into details on where the staff report has very clearly covered a lot of the items. As noted, the applicants propose to sever their existing 4.4 acre property into the two lots with shared driveway access, and the sizes were mentioned by Mr. Crown in his presentation. I have reviewed the staff report, and I support the analysis and the recommendations that are in the report. I would request that the committee approve the application subject to the conditions that are noted in his report. Just from a review from a planning perspective, I have reviewed the provincial policy statement, and I'm also satisfied that the proposal is consistent with the PPS as noted in the staff report and based on the conditions in that report. I've also reviewed the Muskoka official plan and the Muskoka Lakes Township official plans, and I'm also satisfied that the proposal conforms to both of those documents. Again, subject to the conditions that are in the report. The lots do comply with the standards in the WR5-7 zone. I would advise, and it's covered in the report to an extent, that Riverstone Environmental has been retained to complete the scoped environmental impact statement to identify any conditions for protection of the deer wintering area and speak to the steep slopes on the property. The report is expected to be completed within the next few days. I had hoped to have it in advance of today's meeting, but it's not available as yet. We are comfortable with moving forward with provisional approval of the severance, subject to the condition noted in the staff report that the satisfactory scoped EIS is completed to the satisfaction of the township. Satisfies the criteria of section 5124 of the Planning Act. Really available to answer any questions either from the committee or from members of the public as well. Thank you. That's my presentation.
Okay, thank you very much, Mr. Hunter. Is there anyone else wishing to speak in support of this application? Is there anyone wishing to speak in opposition to this application? Are there questions from the members? Oh, yes, Member Green.
I might be confused. I went to the property and I'm wondering if I got confused that the neighbor next door might be under development, or is that the property itself? Because when I went and I saw the pink sign on an old road, then to the left of it, there was quite a big new road, which I thought maybe was the right of way. And I just sort of wanted to get clear on what's happening, because if it isn't the neighbor, then the retained lot has already been fairly significantly cleared. So I'm wondering on that lot, what is the point of the EIS? But as I say, I may be confused.
Mr. Hunter, can you answer that?
I didn't hear the first part of Member Green's question, although I'm sorry, I don't have any information on any site work that has is on the property. There was a cleared area on the site, and there is obviously the requirement for the new driveway that is going to be needed. But again, I'm not familiar with any other alteration that has that is mentioned.
Yes, Member Green.
Mr. Chairman, I can maybe try to help out a little bit. The sign was located on a driveway which provides current access to the property, but it's across a different property. And the application includes a new driveway that would provide access to both the severed and to the retained lot. I can tell you that I was similarly confused when I did my site inspection, member Grogan Green. My sense is that the work that I saw that was occurring is in relation to that new driveway access. Whether or not, I did not see a posted a entrance permit sign, but it would appear as if, based on my site inspection, that the work that was occurring was in relation to that new shared driveway.
Okay, thank you. Yes, Member Green, follow up? Can't hear you. Sorry, we can't hear you.
I walked it and the two roads now meet and it's sort of like a U shape. I thought that's what you meant, that there was it touches the neighbor on the side of the old road, but where they're doing the road work for the new road, they've actually cleared out like a significant amount of property. Maybe it's a parking lot, but it looks more like the tennis court or a building envelope. But it's really significant, the amount of clearing that has been done and the number of trees that, and we're talking conifer trees that have been piled up. And like, in my opinion, I agree with all of the conditions and think that we should wait for this EIS to be done. I think to some extent on the retained lot, it's a waste of time because the clearing has already taken place. But I agree that on the severed lot, maybe it would be useful to have an environmental consultant involved and to hear what they have to say. Is
Yes, Mr.
that
Hunter.
allowed to clear like that? I mean, was there a site plan agreement in place or anything?
Mr. Sharp, do you want to answer that, or Mr. Hunter?
I can help out. I'll just
Okay,
need
thank
to
you.
Unmute here.
Pardon?
I'll have to unmute.
Yeah, that's fine. Yes, you have to, yeah.
Thank you, Chair Edwards. Through you, Mr. Edwards, to Member Grogan Green. Depending on where
Mr. Chairman, if
the
I'm sorry.
clearing has been undertaken, that may not have been subject to the township's tree preservation or site alteration bylaws, provided it's beyond 200 feet from the high water mark. Those bylaws wouldn't have any applicability in this instance. So again, I haven't been to the property. I'm not exactly sure where the area in question is, but if it's beyond 200 feet, it wouldn't be covered under those bylaws. Thank you.
Okay, I would
Okay.
say it was
Does
beyond
that answer your
200
question?
feet. Yes, it does. Yeah.
Okay, thank you very much. Are there any other questions? I'll read the resolution. Moved by Member Bosworth, second by Member Creaser. Be it resolved that consent be granted for application B 2420 ML Beswick, providing the following conditions are fulfilled. 1, a registral description deed of the severed lot along with an access easement to be submitted to the Secretary-Treasurer along with a registered copy of the reference plan. 2, that a satisfactory scope environmental impact assessment be completed, which makes a determination as to where development and site alterations can occur with the severed and retained lots without negatively impacting natural features or ecological function that is to be implemented to the satisfaction of the township. 3, that the township is satisfied that the severance and retained lots are satisfactory for on-site sewage disposal, that any problems identified with the existing sewage system be corrected to the satisfaction of the township. 4, that an entrance permit from the Muskoka Lakes Public Works Department be obtained. 5, that a site plan control be imposed for the redevelopment on the severed lot. And 6, that cash in lieu of parkland be dedicated to the township in the amount of 5% of the assessed value of the newly created vacant lot or the entire lands, whichever is less. Any questions or comments? All those in favor? And then it's carried. I believe we need impacts. Yeah, impacts. Can I have some impacts?
It's consistent with the plan. And the
Okay.
bylaw.
Good, and that good planning report and no objections from neighbors. Thank you. And the next application is B 2520 Niblett.
Can you maybe turn up your volume?
Pardon?
Can you turn up your volume when they're presenting? It's hard to hear.
Okay, sorry.
Okay,
And that's Mr. Hunter, I believe.
thanks.
I think that's me, Mr. Chairman.
Yeah, that's right. Yes, Mr. Hunter. I thought
Yeah,
so.
thank you. The next application is item 8B on your agenda. It's application B 2520 under the name Niblett. As a vacant property, the lands do not have a municipal address assigned. The property is legally described as part of Lot 19, Concession 8, Parts 2 and 3 on reference plan 35R 6541 in former Medora, and is located on the north side of Halls Road, just east of Peninsula Road. The application sketch is provided at page 51 of the committee agenda. The application B2520 is a provisional consent application to create a 1.8 acre severed lot and a 1.8 acre retained lot from the existing vacant property. Both lots are intended for future development as residential waterfront lots on Lake Rosso. The application also includes a right-of-way in favor of the retained lot over the severed lot for the purposes of legal vehicle access. Notice of this hearing was mailed on December 18th. And as noted in the staff report, Mr. Chairman, the property notice signs were not posted on the subject property as required under the Planning Act. And as such, we are recommending that since the notice requirements of the Planning Act have not been satisfied, the application be deferred, and so the notice can be posted and recirculated for the next available committee meeting in accordance with the requirements of the Planning Act. Mr. Chairman, I will report on the items that the committee has received in response to the mailed notice. Although the intent would be to include those with the committee agenda for when this item is recirculated. We have a letter dated January 7th from the District Municipality of Muskoka stating that the district would not be opposed to the approval of the application subject to appropriate conditions to conserve deer cover, feeding, and movement areas and implement the recommendations of the fish habitat assessment by Beacon Environmental. We also have an email dated January 10th from Karen and David Cornell at 1013 Halls Road, which is the abutting property to the north, objecting to the subject application. And as the committee is aware, you also have the detailed planning report with respect to the subject application. Mr. Chairman, members of the committee, that concludes my presentation. Willing to answer any questions that the committee has.
Thank you very much. Is there anyone here to speak in support of this application? Okay, we'll let him speak, but this will be actually deferred.
Good morning,
Yes,
members of the committee.
you're breaking up, Mr. Gallagher.
Seems to be a bit frozen, so seems to be a little bit frozen.
Yes,
Can you hear me now?
I can.
Okay, thank you. John P. Gallagher, 24 Hibbard Road, Huntsville, P1H 1C9. I'm the planning consultant for Steve Niblett. Steve had meetings with the planning staff back in June, July, when he was looking at purchasing the lands, and basically went over the application with them. At the time, staff had asked that a fisheries assessment be undertaken for the lands if he were to move forward in that regard. And so he eventually retained me, and we had Beacom Environmental prepare the fisheries assessment, and the application was submitted. Staff then came back and wanted an environmental assessment to deal with deer winter yard and species at risk, which was also prepared and submitted by Beacom Environmental. And they have standard conditions that have typically taken in place with regards to development on these lots. It should be noted that the lands are already zoned waterfront residential 5, and the lot sizes and frontage are both in accordance with the requirement. The access and the right-of-way is located along the west side of the property, and that's a current legal right-of-way, and there's no intent to remove any access to the adjacent property to the north. With respect to the notice, I understand they phoned and my mailbox was full, but I never got an email at any time suggesting that I need to pick up signs. Most municipalities send me a copy of the notice in an email to come pick it up, which I clearly would have. That being said, the application was circulated and there is comments received. I have yet to see the comments from the neighbor that were submitted on the 7th of January. So I don't know how to address their concerns that I can't see. With regards to the application overall, the application meets the intent of the provincial policy, the district official plan, the local official plan, and the zoning on the subject lands. Committee can waive any condition it deems to be inappropriate, and we would request that the requirement for the zoning amendment be removed. And why we say that is as follows. Number one, you see in the conditions, the lands are subject to an agreement under the Planning Act, and that agreement will be registered on title and subsequent with each subsequent owner. And that purpose of that is to provide the prospective purchasers with the environmental reports, and also to allow the municipality to identify what additional comments are required during the building process. Second, on top of that, council and staff have suggested a site plan agreement for the lands. So we've got another layer of protection to address where the boathouse and the dock would be located. And on top of that, you also have a tree cutting bylaw. So we feel that the condition to impose a rezoning for lands that are already zoned just solely for the purpose of identifying the dock structure is additional time, money, and basically, it will take up more staff time in the local level to process another application for something that will be already dealt with through the 5126 agreement and the site plan agreement. the owner would like to move forward and start his construction. He has his property out on Lake Rosso and he wants to build his boathouse and move forward with that. We would ask that committee approve the application and withdraw the condition requiring the zoning amendment. I believe my client was trying to get connected to the meeting, and I think he wanted to say a few words as well. And I'd be glad to answer any questions should you have any. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And is there somebody coming on? No, he's not in the queue. And that, but because the sign was not and not posted, I think this application should be deferred. Any comments from the members?
Steve Niblett's here now.
Oh, okay.
Agreed.
Pardon? Okay, Mr.
Hello?
Niblett? Yes, hello.
I'm here, but I'm losing my video.
Okay.
I
No,
mean,
we
I can hear you. Yeah, okay, go ahead. Can you hear me?
And that,
Go ahead,
would you
Stephen.
like to speak? Yes.
Is there a question? I wasn't asked.
No, they said that you would like to speak.
Okay, I don't know has John presented anything yet?
Yes, he has.
Okay, I apologize
So,
for.
Steve, just,
Yeah.
I understand Steve was having a hard time getting on, so maybe I could just let him know that right now, I did do my presentation and ask that the condition regarding zoning amendment be removed. And a committee is suggesting that the application be deferred because the sign wasn't put up. I don't know if they're prepared to debate this issue on the zoning amendment, as it is a condition that's in front. And I had also just found out that there was a letter of objection from the neighbor to the north that I wasn't aware of.
Okay. Well, I guess my understanding is that once there is a decision by committee, there's 21 days for anyone to appeal that decision. And would that constitute time enough for the signs to be posted and any further objections? But it sounds like it's already been circulated with the neighbors.
Yes, but the sign wasn't posted as the thing, and the Secretary-Treasurer has to sign off on it, so.
No,
really,
I understand that. My point is that it was the deficiency of the township not to relay that the sign was there. Can we put them up now and use the 21-day waiting period for any decision you guys make today as?
No.
I mean, okay.
Okay. So again, I'll ask the committee, should this be deferred? And I would say, I would ask that it is. I got one, yes, two. Yes, and Mr. Quinn, were you voting or just want to speak?
Just a question on the condition of the zoning. If committee asks us to bring this back to the February meeting of Committee of Adjustment, if we deal with this zoning issue now, then we will either have to submit an application with that or not. But at the same time, we've got additional costs of a couple $1,000. And if we just bring back the consent decision in February, and then committee then argues that the zoning amendment is required, that'll be an additional 3 months added on to this application, which we submitted back in October.
I'll let Mr. Sharp answer that one. Mr. Sharp, I think really it should be deferred. You can speak to the applicant or the applicant's agent over this and see if it is worthwhile and not take any rezoning out. Is that proper?
Yeah, that's through the chair. Hello, Ellen?
Yes, Mr. Quinn?
Yeah, I would like to hear from the planners or whoever on the zoning bylaw amendment. I mean, I think there's lots of layers of protection. Should we grant this based on site plan and the other stuff? He's bought a property with a certain zoning, and for us to change that at this point, I would like to hear why, or if there's not a way around, because this will be a slow process, and I don't know that it's totally fair to the applicant.
Yes, Mr. Crown.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'll let Mr. Sharp add on if he thinks that there's anything else that the committee needs to hear. To some extent, I don't think you can make a decision whether or not this condition should be imposed or not at this time, because the notice requirements under the Planning Act haven't been satisfied. So really your decision on that has to be only after the appropriate notice has been provided. The short answer is there are different tools under the Planning Act that do different things, and site plan control can't do what zoning does, and zoning can't do what site plan control does. And that's why the municipality in situations like this always use both tools, because they do different things. Zoning bylaw can actually fix the location, establish performance standards as to where docks should be located. And site plan can't do that. And that's why the municipality typically with these types of applications use all the tools that are available to them to appropriately regulate the development that's proposed. In particular, site plan control is an inelegant tool under the Ontario Building Code Act as applicable law. So the best tool to establish applicable law under the Ontario Building Code Act is the zoning bylaw. And I think that's why the municipality typically requires a rezoning where a EIS identifies a very specific and narrow location for a building or structure. Hopefully, Mr. Chairman, that answers your question, but I think it can be something that we can have further discussions with Mr. Gallagher about, and maybe expand on in the staff report that would be circulated with the new notice for the next hearing.
Thank you very much. Okay, so I think we're going to actually defer this. Mr. Gallagher, you're welcome to talk to the planning department and see if you can get that sorted out, but it has to be recirculated.
I guess my concern was, even after hearing the first application where you've approved an application without the environmental report, we've done all the reports and we still don't get a comment on that, but I respect committee's decision.
Yes, Mr. Sharp, would you like to make a comment?
For you, Chair Edwards, just to that effect, I would note that in regard to the Beswick application, there would be a requirement to, as per the condition, implement whatever study is required to our satisfaction, and that may require a section 51 subsection 26 agreement under the Planning Act, as well as a zoning bylaw amendment. We'd need to see the details of that report before we could make that determination.
Again, the decision's been made. Yeah.
Okay, so yes, Member Green.
Will we get an opportunity to see these two environmental reports? We didn't get to see the beacon studies at all.
Sorry, I had trouble hearing you. Sorry.
Sorry, I'm asking whether the Committee of Adjustment will get an opportunity to review the environmental reports.
Staff and that look at it.
Well, how did the neighbors, sorry, through the chair, how do the neighbors appropriately respond if they also do not get an opportunity to see these reports? There's a couple of residents along the road on Halls that will be overlooking, they right now overlook the lake on the slim part of one of the two lots. If I was them, I think I'd want to know what the reports say, because it's type 1 fish habitat. So I don't understand why. On other occasions, we have seen environmental reports.
Mr. Sharp, would you like to handle that one?
Thank you, Chair Edwards. I was just looking at the agenda, and unfortunately, it appeared that we didn't attach the reports to the agenda package. Normally, they would be, but in this case, unfortunately, they were not attached. So apologies for that.
Could I just ask a question about, we haven't got that letter of objection from the neighbor. Can that be sent to us? And just to answer the committee member's question, the side along the road, that's all being left in a natural state.
Yes, Mr. Sharp.
Through you, Chair Edwards. I just, as a quick follow-up, if the applications are deferred or brought back in whatever shape or form, either to Committee of Adjustment or to Planning Committee, we'll make sure that those reports are attached to the agenda. And just to follow up on Mr. Gallagher's concern about the objection, we only just received that objection this morning, so I believe it was submitted at some point overnight. So just given our staff resources at the moment, we weren't able to forward that to Mr. Gallagher, but we'll make sure that that happens as soon as possible.
Sorry, I thought they said it had come in a few days earlier, that's all. Apologize.
Okay, well, thank you very much. So we'll go on to the next application. And the next application is B 2620 ML Pier 100 Cottage Resort. And I believe that is also Mr. Crown.
That's correct, Mr. Chairman. As noted, it's the next application on your agenda is a provisional consent application B 2620 under the name Pier 100 Cottage Resort for the property at 2689 Muskoka Road, 118 West, unit number 3. The subject application is for a right-of-way over an existing driveway laneway in favor of the budding property owned by Kevin and Nicole Gano. The application sketch is provided at page 62 of your agenda. Notice of this hearing was also provided on December 18th, 2020, and therefore the notice requirements of the Planning Act have been satisfied, Mr. Chairman. In response to that notice, the committee has received the following reports and/or correspondence in respect of the application. You have the detailed planning report at page 55 of the committee agenda. Public Works has noted they have no objections. Building Department also noted they have no objections. We have an email dated January 7th from the District Municipality of Muskoka noting that they have no objections to the application. We also have an email dated January 10th and a number of follow-up emails this morning from John Birch, who's the owner of 1038 and 1042 Tom Rowe Road, which is the neighboring lots, who requested clarification of the staff recommendation and the condition addressing septic systems. And I can provide that, Mr. Chairman, at your approval. As noted, you do have the detailed planning report where we have reviewed the relevant plans and policies and have conducted our analysis of the subject application under section 5124 of the Planning Act, and we have no concerns with the approval of the application subject to 3 recommendations. Mr. Chairman, just to clarify, the recommendation around the septic systems is a standard municipal recommendation, I believe, and it just ensures that the existing septic systems are operating safely and in accordance with the requirements of provincial regulations.
Thank you very much, and Mr. Crown. And is the applicant or applicant's agent here wishing to speak on this? And I believe we have somebody from Planscape.
Yeah, Kelly Hodder is here. She is. She's coming in. owners are here too.
Okay.
John and Judy Birch are also here.
Neighbors.
Neighbors.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Happy New Year, everybody.
Same to you.
Kelly Hodder, planner with Planscape, 104 Kimberly Ave, Bracebridge, P1L1C6. Good morning. I am here today with Nicole and Kevin Gano, the property owners who will benefit from the proposed right-of-way. First of all, thank you to staff for the report. We agree with its findings. The purpose of the application before you is to create a right-of-way over an existing driveway. A lot addition was approved in 2018 to add a garage and right-of-way to the benefiting lot. A survey was recently completed as required to meet the conditions of the 2018 lot addition, which resulted in the discovery that the driveway was not actually included in the original application. I would like to note that the approval of this application is required to finalize the previous 2018 consent, as otherwise the benefiting lot would not have road access. Normally, approval for the entire driveway would have been included in the original application with no additional fee incurred. Unfortunately, this did not occur as the owners were relying on an old survey. Because this was an inadvertent error, the property owners would like to request a full or partial refund of the $1,200 application fee. I respectfully request this application be approved and a return of funds considered. Thank you for the opportunity to speak today. I believe the Ganos would also like to address the committee if that's okay. Thank you.
Can't hear you, Mr. Chair.
Muted. You're muted.
Oh, sorry. Yes, the Ganos. Yes, okay, thank you.
Yes, I'm Kevin Gano, my wife Nicole beside me, 2689 Muskoka Road 118 West, Unit 2, P0B 1JO. There's been some confusion with our driveway, legal access to our driveway, as it was originally on the plan as going over Part 4. But it has always been on Part 5, and we didn't realize this until we had a survey done, which was these foundings. So this is where the predicament we're in right now, and this is why we've requested the application. And to do with the survey, all the work was done back in 2018, and that's also, excuse me, why we're asking for a partial refund or a full refund on our application.
Okay, thank you very much. And would there anyone else like to speak on this?
I have John and Judy Birch, and they're separate coming in.
Okay. And I thought you said you had the owner as well?
No.
Okay.
Mr. Chairman, this is John Birch.
Yes, sir.
I did unmute. I can't tell whether people heard me or not.
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay. I simply raised a question trying to understand, I guess it was the second aspect of the recommendation from the city, from the township, from the planning department, which said apparently it's going to require, as I understand it, I couldn't, the language was a little convoluted, but it sounds like it's going to require a review of the non-compliance issues that exist on the Pier 100 lot itself. It has nothing to do with really with the severance issue or the right-of-way issue. And I simply was concerned that since there back in 2018, significant non-compliance issues were found on the Pier 100 lot that severely restrict any further redevelopment that's possible on that property. That if the septic issues are going to be reviewed, that indeed all non-compliance issues should be reviewed, and everyone involved, including the new owners, reminded of what those restrictions are.
Okay, thank you very much. I believe that is a standard clause that we put in so that we can check septic systems out and that. And is there anyone else who's speaking on this?
I brought in Judy Birch,
Okay,
but I'm gonna ask her to unmute. I'm not sure whether she wants to speak.
okay. Mr. Burst, does your wife want to speak on this?
No, she does not.
Okay, that's fine. Okay. Are there any questions from the committee? Okay. I'll read the resolution. Moved by member Quinn, second by member Creaser. Be it resolved that consent be granted for application B 2620 ML 2784805 Ontario Inc., formerly Pier 100 Cottage Resort, provided the following conditions are fulfilled. 1, a registrable description deed of the several lot along with the right-of-way be submitted to the Secretary-Treasurer along with a registered copy of the reference plan. The reference plan shall confirm the location and dimensions of the right-of-way. And 2, confirmation that the township is satisfied that proposed retained lot is satisfactory for individual on-site septic systems and that all non-compliances, if any, with the existing septic system be satisfactorily addressed. And that, are there any questions or comments from the committee? All those in favor? And that is carried. And now there was a request for the funds to be and that returned. In this case, I think it's more of a technical error than a fault of anyone else's. And I would say that we should maybe give all or some of it back. And I'd like to hear what the committee has to say. Yes, Mr. Bosworth.
I'm just wondering how much effort there has been on staff to handle this, because there are some costs to the townships.
Mr. Sharp.
Through you, Chair Edwards. So as with any application, we've reviewed it. We've prepared a public notice. We've prepared a staff report. We've undertaken a site visit, and now we're attending a public meeting. So a fair amount of staff resources have been devoted to this application.
Okay. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, it does. And it makes me, maybe we give a partial refund.
Okay. Anyone else like to make a comment?
Yeah, I have a question.
Yes.
You say it's a technical error?
Well, I think
I'm not sure how the error.
So you froze there. Mr. Sharp, could you answer that?
Through you, Chair Edwards. I can do my best, and I'd ask Ms. Hodder to jump in here and clarify if needed. But my understanding is back in 2018, when a severance application was submitted to sever and add lands to the abutting Gano property, that the identified right-of-way in that application wasn't correctly identified. My understanding is that the application at that time was based on an old survey, and following the approval of that application, it was determined that there was a need to grant a slightly larger right-of-way. So I'm not sure it's necessarily a technicality so much as perhaps some information was missing at that time. So that I think that's as much clarification as I can provide. Again, I'd ask Ms. Hodder to clarify if needed. Thanks.
Thank you very much, Mr. Sharp.
I can.
Yes.
I can add to that a little bit. I think Mr. Sharp is correct. The application in 2018 was originally completed using an older survey that showed the driveway as being part of the lots that were applied for. It wasn't until the new one was done that it found out that the old one was incorrect. So there isn't really any way to anticipate that a survey, old or not, would be incorrect. Usually they're pretty good. So that's why this has been submitted. The change wasn't noticed by our office. It wasn't noticed by township staff or the previous committee. So I would say it's sort of an unfortunate inconsistency that we're trying to rectify now.
Thank you. Can I ask a question of you then? Was this here right away basically showing almost the same as it was on the old survey as just a new survey? And was this survey done when the property now changed hands?
Sorry, could you repeat that for me?
I said the right of way on the old survey. Okay, was it just basically the same as it's showing now? It's just it was incorrectly labeled, and this was found out when the new survey was done, when the property was sold now.
So the new right-of-way is a little bit outside of what was previously applied for, is my understanding. It wasn't really an issue because both parts were owned by family, but you are correct that now the one lot has sold. It's important to rectify the legal access.
Okay, thank you. Any other comments from the committee? Yes, Mr. Bosworth.
I would suggest we go 50-50 on it.
Anyone else on that? Yes.
Yeah, I agree with Rob that a 50-50 split would be good.
Okay. Anyone else? I would say that 50-50 would be adequate in that. Can I just say a show of hands who would go 50-50 on that? And that is carried. Okay, so we'll go 50% on that. Yes.
Just need the impact of submissions.
Any impact of submissions? Anyone? It was a good planning report. Yes, Member Green?
Yeah, a good planning report and the fulfillment of an earlier condition that revealed something that needed to be corrected. So I think that's good.
Yeah, okay, thank you very much. So we've done that one.
Yes. Yes.
And the next application is A5420, James Langley.
Edwards. The next application to be heard is minor variance application A-54-20 in the name of James and Langley. The subject property is known municipally as 1197 Hamels Point Road. I would direct committee's attention to the submitted site plan on page 69 of the agenda package. The purpose and effect of the application is summarized as follows. The applicants propose to construct a two-story garage. The proposed garage will result in a lot coverage of 11%. The variance requested is 1% or 289 square feet. Relief is also requested from the maximum permitted height of 20 feet for an accessory structure. The proposed garage is to be 26 feet in height. The variance requested is 6 feet. Notice of this public hearing under the Planning Act was circulated 20 days in advance, and 2 submissions have been received to date. The first submission is by Nick Snyder, the township's chief building official. The Development Services Department has no comment. The second submission is by Tim Sopko, the township's public works technician. The Public Works Department has advised the propane tank servicing the lot is located on the road allowance and should be relocated to private property. Staff have prepared a detailed report for committee's consideration. After the public notice was circulated for the subject application, it was determined that the submitted site plan does not reflect the subject property post-consent. Staff are recommending that this application be deferred so the site plan and proposal can be amended. Staff have no further comments at this time, and I'm happy to answer any questions. Thanks.
Thank you very much. Is the applicant or applicant's agent here wishing to speak on this?
Savas is coming in.
Okay, Planscape?
Good morning, members of the committee. Can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Perfect. My name is Savas Fratis. I'm Plan Muskoka in Huntsville, PO Box 5384, Huntsville, Ontario, P1H 2K7. I'm here this morning representing the Langleys as their agent and professional planner. I read the report provided by staff, and we were in communications and sort of in the weeks leading up to this hearing. It was an unfortunate situation where we found out that just actually last year a consent application was finalized on the property, which was for a minor lot addition, which appeared to be to transfer a small piece of land to the neighboring property to correct an encroaching driveway. Unfortunately, even though it was a very, very small piece of land, I think it was only about 500 square feet that was transferred over to the neighboring property. That did have an impact on the lot addition, or sorry, the lot coverage calculation on this property. So it was circulated for 11%. That's the way it was designed for and intended for. But the result, when we take away the lot area that was removed from the property, it does boost that number up to 11.2. So we are working on some solutions to sort of bring that number back down to that 11% mark, where it was intended to sort of stop or be maxed at. And we're working with the designers right now to do that, and hopefully we'll come up with a solution shortly. So in the meantime, we do understand the deferral reason, and we have no problem with deferring the application until we find that solution. But until then, I'd be happy to answer any questions you have. Thank you.
Okay. Are there any questions, or I think we should just actually defer this right now and then have it come back?
You have to ask for support and opposition.
Oh, pardon?
You have to ask for support and opposition.
Yeah, anyone in support of this or anyone in opposition?
No, I don't see anybody.
No, sorry, yeah. Okay, thank you very much. So we'll get this and that straightened out and you can come back. Thank you.
Thank you.
And the next application is A 5520.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I think that's me.
It is?
Yep. The next application is minor variance application A 5520 under the name De Gasperis for the property at 1361 Foreman Road, unit number 16. The location map is, I believe, at page 79 of your committee agenda. The application sketch is provided at page 92 of your agenda, and the elevations of the proposed boat port are at page 93 of your agenda as well. As indicated, the owner proposes a new boat port on an existing dock that requires 3 variances for the proposed 186 square foot boat port. There is a request for an increase in lot coverage within 200 feet of the shoreline by 1% to 11%, side yard setback of 24.4 feet, a variance of 6 feet from the required 30 feet, and an increase in the cumulative width of the shoreline structures of 2 feet from the permitted 17 feet to permit the 19 foot width of the boat port. Mr. Chairman, the notice with respect to this hearing was provided on December 22nd, and the notice requirements of the Planning Act have been satisfied. In response to that notice, the committee has before it a planning report at page 80 of your agenda. Public Works has advised January 4th that they have no objections. The Building Department has advised on December 11th that they have no objections. We also have 2 emails from neighbors as follows. We have an email dated January 8th from Chris and Margaret Hughes of number 20 Chisholm Trail, which are 2 properties away from the DeGasperis property. They opposed the 3 variances for the proposed boat port as being too large for the size of the lot in close proximity to the neighbors and will restrict views of the lake. We also have an email dated January 8th from Tony and Leona Davis at 1361 Foreman Road, number 18, who are the immediate neighbors, expressing deep opposition to the requested variances, as the proposal will also impact their views. Mr. Chairman, you do have the detailed planning report, wherein we reviewed the relevant plans and policies that would guide your consideration of this subject application. We also analyzed the application with respect to the 4 tests under the Planning Act and have provided our opinion with the conformity of the application with those 4 tests. Mr. Chairman, we have no concerns with the approval of the subject application. Certainly willing to answer any questions that the committee has with respect to this matter.
Thank you very much. And is there anyone here to speak in support or opposition to this application? We'll go with support first.
The agents here,
Okay.
Kelly Hodder.
Mm-hmm.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Back again. Kelly Hodder, planner with Planscape, 104 Kimberly Ave, Bracebridge, P1L1C6. Good morning. I am here today representing Christine DeGasperis, the owner of the property. First of all, thank you to staff for the report. We agree with its contents. The purpose of this application is to obtain planning approval for approximately a 200 square foot boat port on an existing dock. The lot is relatively narrow in width, limiting the permitted lot coverage within 200 feet of the shoreline. There is no existing boathouse or boat port currently on the property. A variance has been included to permit a lot coverage of 11% within 200 feet of the shoreline, where 10% is the maximum permitted. No additional habitable space is requested. The increase strictly represents a covered boat port. A variance has also been requested to permit a boathouse width of 17.1%, where 16% is permitted. This represents a 2-foot increase in width and is due to the angle of the structure. Finally, a variance has been requested to permit a reduced side yard setback of 24 feet, where 30 feet is required. In my opinion, the application does meet the 4 tests of a minor variance based on the following criteria. Does the proposal maintain the general intent and purpose of the official plan? In reviewing the township's official plan, it can be determined this application does meet the general intent and purpose of the document. The proposed boat port is in keeping with the character of the surrounding properties and is not expected to dominate the shoreline. No impact to existing vegetation or the shoreline vegetative buffer is expected. Lake Muskoka is recognized for its larger built form and building types, and the official plan allows for a variation of 1/10 of the permitted lot coverage, which in this case is 11%. Official plan policies relating to shoreline structures relate to the suitable construction of docks and the balance of natural and built form, which this proposal complies with. Does the proposal maintain the general intent and purpose of the zoning bylaw? This application will request planning approval for a boat port with an area of less than 200 square feet, which will bring the lot coverage within 200 feet of the shoreline to 11%. All shoreline buffers are to remain unaffected as the dock is existing, as the policies regarding waterfront development aim to minimize dominance of the built form. The small size of the boat port is particularly relevant. While the boat port is proposed to be 12 feet in width, the angle of the dock and proposed structure is such that the width is measured at 18.4 feet, which requires an additional variance. Finally, the boat port requires a variance to side yard setback, again due to the angle of the shoreline. I do believe the boat port is located an adequate distance from the neighboring lot. The proposal complies with the remaining side yard setback and is well within the permitted length projection into the water. Where the intent of the bylaw is to support appropriate land uses, in my opinion, this proposal to permit lot coverage of 11%, a 1.1% increase to boathouse width, and a 6-foot reduction in side yard setback for the purpose of the boat port maintains the general intent and purpose of the zoning bylaw. Is the proposal desirable for the appropriate development or use of the land, building, or structure? I believe the proposal is desirable and appropriate for the property, as the boathouse is in keeping with the character of the other neighborhood shoreline structures. The impact of the boat port is minimal, and the intensity of the use is not expected to change. There is already an existing slip in that location. While the dwelling is modestly sized, the property is quite small, resulting in the proposed variance for lot coverage. The significantly angled shoreline has led to the inclusion of a variance for boathouse width, 17.1% where 16 is permitted, as well as the requirement of a reduction in the eastern side yard setback. As the shoreline continues to angle away from the dock and boat port, impact to neighbors is expected to be minimal. The shoreline features mature trees that will remain. No changes proposed to the shoreline buffer. There is no significant fish habitat that could be impacted by the proposed boat port. Finally, is it minor? Although there is no precise definition of minor, considering an application's impact is one of the best indications. In this application, the proposed boat port will not be highly visible from neighboring properties. There is a 2-story boathouse on the property to the east and a 1-story boathouse associated with the property on the west. The proposed boat port will be far more diminutive than the surrounding structures. There will be no significant change to the perception or massing of the appearance of the property as a whole. The requested increase to lot coverage is 1% or approximately 200 square feet. The additional variances are both small numerically and in terms of impact due to the angle of the shoreline and dock and are easily considered minor. I respectfully request committee approve this application today, and I am happy to answer any questions you may have. Thank you very much for the opportunity to speak.
Thank you very much. Is the anyone else wishing to speak in support of this application?
Opposition,
Is there anyone that speak in opposition to this application?
Leona Davis.
Okay.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Good morning. This is Tony Davis. I'm speaking on behalf of my wife, Leona Davis. She's actually working on an important personal call with a doctor, so I'm sorry if she's not available. I'd like to just comment on this proposal. First of all, we're at number 18. We're located immediately to the east of the property. I actually saw in the report that's posted on the website a photograph of our dock that from the subject property. And if you take a look at it, you will see that we have about a 90-degree view because of from our dock of the lake. And this the dock next door covers a significant part of our view from the lake. This boathouse will have a large impact, we believe, on our view. We are significantly close to the neighbors, and anytime there are on the dock, you can certainly hear everything that they say and see everything that happens. And usually there's quite, it has a significant impact on us. We definitely regard, building this boathouse to have a significant impact on our view. It is a small lot, as you've noticed. The actual existing cottage is a mere 6 foot. If you look at the actual planning from our lot line, from probably previous variances requested. And actually, I noticed on the survey that, surprisingly to me, the actual parking area of the lot is 2 foot on our property, which is another issue for me to consider. I do believe that this would change the character of of our view significantly. There is requesting a further 6 foot change in the side back variance. It's a full 20% difference in terms of what is allowed to be for this boathouse to be closer to us. So I would request from the committee that this application not be approved. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Is there anyone else here to speak in opposition to this application? Well, that is it. Other questions from the members? I'll read the motion.
Chair Edwards?
Yes.
Just a question for the neighbor who just spoke. He said that picture included a picture of his dock. Does that dock also, or does that picture includes boathouse? Is that his boathouse as well?
Mr. Davis, can you answer that?
It is my boathouse, correct.
See.
Second comment, Mr. Chair.
Mm-hmm.
Ms. Hodder said that there are boathouses on both sides of this property. So I think that's a confirmation, right, Ms. Hodder?
Sorry, yes, there's boathouses on both sides. I believe the other boathouse is a single story.
Okay. Anyone else like this to speak on this or make a comment? Okay, I'll read it. Yes, Mr. Quinn.
I think that it's the 1% variance is in the official plan. I think the dock is already there. I think they haven't asked for walls. It's a good looking structure. I'm going to support this.
Okay, thank you very much. Okay, so I will read the resolution. Moved by Member Quinn, second by Member Green. Be it resolved that application A5520 De Graspis to permit the construction of a boat port with the following variances being granted. 1, to permit a lot coverage of 2,252 square feet or 11% within the lot area 200 feet from the high water mark. 2, to permit a boat port to be 19 feet in width. And 3, to permit a boat port 24 feet from the projected side lot line. These variances are granted as shown on the plan attached of the notice of decision. This approval shall remain in effect for 3 years from the date of decision. Any questions or comments? All those in favor? And that is carried. Thank you. And the reasons.
Good staff report, and it was minor.
Agreed.
Okay. And I just ask, we're going to take a 10-minute comfort break at this point, and we'll get back to the next application. Thank you. Okay, we have everyone back. We're just, no, we're waiting for member Bottomsworth. There he is. Okay, so we're ready to go. And the next application is A 5620 Donaldson.
Thank you, Chair Edwards. The next application to be heard is minor variance application A-56-20 in the name of Donaldson. The subject property is known municipally as 1532 Mortimer's Point Road, Unit 12. I would direct committee's attention to the submitted site plan on page 109 of the agenda package. The purpose and effect of the application is summarized as follows. The applicant proposes to construct a two-story garage. The proposed garage will result in 10.7% lot coverage on the entire lot and 11% lot coverage within 200 feet from the high water mark. The permitted lot coverage is 10%. The variances required are 0.7% and 1% respectively. Notice of this public hearing under the Planning Act was circulated 20 days in advance and 11 submissions have been received to date. The first submission is by Nick Snyder, the township's chief building official. The Development Services Department has no comment. The second submission is by Tim Sopko, the township's public works technician. The Public Works Department has no objections. 9 letters of objection have been received. I will summarize each letter for committee. If committee wishes to hear any of these letters in full, please let me know. A letter of objection has been received from Camille Arnold, a neighboring property owner at 1532 Mortimer's Point Road, Unit 4. The letter was submitted by John Arnold on behalf of Camille Arnold, which I will now summarize. Ms. Arnold has not received notice or been consulted by the owner. The proposed garage is unnecessary and will result in an overall built form that is not compatible or in character for the area. The garage will be located on a low-lying swamp area that is prone to flooding and will impact lakeside views. Overall, Ms. Arnold does not believe the proposed garage is consistent with the township's official plan or zoning bylaws. A letter of objection has been received from Terrence Sean Harvey, a neighboring property owner at 1532 Mortimer's Point Road, Unit 16. I will summarize the submitted letter. Mr. Harvey is concerned that he has not received notice or been consulted by the owner. The proposed garage is too large and will have detrimental visual impact on his property and is incompatible with the existing neighborhood. Mr. Harvey states that a structure of this size and the location requested could create environmental impacts on our ability to access our cottages via the right-of-way when lake levels are high or during the spring thaw. He is concerned that the proposed garage could cause problems with the septic, which is located in close proximity to the proposed structure. Mr. Harvey believes that when previous variances and the current variance are considered together, they can no longer be considered minor and contravene the intent of the township zoning bylaw. Mr. Harvey indicates he believes this property is a property flip and lacks any reasonable grounds for approval. Mr. Harvey requests that committee reject the application, and if committee is considering approval, they limit the proposed garage to a single story. A letter of objection has been received from Garrett and Diana Leckerker, neighboring property owners at 1532 Mortimer's Point Road, Unit 14. Garrett and Diana object to the proposed garage for the following reasons. There's a possibility of spring runoff from the septic bed straight into Lake Muskoka. There's an increase of mosquitoes in the area due to the location of the existing septic bed. There's the large built form of the proposed garage, which is unnecessary as the main cottage has an existing attached 3-car garage. A letter of objection has been received from Marion McCain, a neighboring property owner at 1532 Mortimer's Point Road, Unit 24. Ms. McCain expresses concerns about the road's integrity since the subject property was developed and is concerned that the location of the garage is in a low-lying area that's prone to flooding. Ms. McCain requests that the additional information be submitted, including a stormwater management report and an erosion and sediment control plan and a professionally drafted and stamped plan of the structure. A letter of objection has been received from Nancy Nobrig, a neighboring property owner at 1532 Mortimer's Point Road, Unit 22. The letter requests that the variance be denied based on the following environmental concerns. Recent development on the property has affected the natural drainage capacity and has negatively impacted access to the properties on the road. The new septic system, which is in a similar location, is very close to the lake and has led to erosion of the road. An additional structure will further damage what has already been damaged. Additionally, there has been an increase in mosquitoes in the area, which stems from the degradation of land due to the location of the sewage system. We no longer have any excuses that we did not know what would happen. We now know, and I would be sorely irresponsible if I did not object to the further development of this land, which the variance would allow. I therefore request that this variance must not be allowed. A letter of objection has been received from Jim and Sarah Roper, neighboring property owners at 1532 Mortimer's Point Road, Unit 20. The letter from Jim and Sarah states the subject property is already densely populated. Drainage is a major issue in the area, and they are concerned that the proposed building could very likely make the access road impassable during spring runoff and damp and difficult to navigate at other times of the year. We have concerns that the second story will be used as a dwelling unit once construction is complete. These points, along with those made by our neighbor, Sean Harvey, in his letter, are the reasons why we object to the variance for Mr. Donaldson's 2-story garage. A letter of objection has been received from Sally Roper. Ms. Roper believes believes building large homes with multiple garages for many cars is at odds with the beauty and nature that people come to Muskoka to experience. Concerns are also expressed about the drainage patterns of the area. A letter of objection has been received from Sandra Robertson and Scott Roper, neighboring property owners at 1532 Mortimer's Point Road, Unit 20. The existing buildings are very large, and in contrast with the others on the shoreline, we are unable to understand why a single-family residence with an existing 3-car garage and 4-slip boathouse requires additional space for cars and storage. The proposed location also creates concern for drainage, which has been a long-term problem that affects the roadway. A letter of objection has been received from Nancy Roper, a neighboring property owner at 1532 Mortimer's Point Road, Unit 20. The existing and proposed development on the Donaldson property is not in character for the area, which is generally comprised of more modest dwellings. There have been significant changes to the drainage patterns since the existing Donaldson buildings were built, and a new garage could make these problems worse. Ms. Roper is also concerned about the proximity of the septic system to the lake. With additional runoff and possible flooding, I am concerned about the possible contamination of the lake water and our drinking water. The proposed garage will have a negative impact on views, in particular from the private road. I think it is important to remember this property has already been given a significant variance on the cottage setback, and I question whether it is reasonable to also contemplate a lot coverage variance, particularly in light of the fact that not only is the footprint over the allowable percentage, but the footprint will be almost exclusively 2 stories versus 1, thus doubling the building density on the property. If the committee is considering approval, I request documents be resubmitted with the septic system, stream, and muddy road area included. A committee delegate visit the property in person. The proposed garage be reduced to a single car, single story. Tree buffer between the garage and road be required, and an environmental and road engineer be engaged to provide recommendations on flooding, road damage, and septic involvement. Staff have prepared a detailed report for committee's consideration. If committee is considering approval, staff recommend the following condition: that the identified development envelope be staked in a flood line surveyed by an Ontario land surveyor, and if the envelope is within the flood line, that a satisfactory technical report addressing section B.8.4 of the township's official plan be prepared by a qualified professional and implemented to the satisfaction of the township. Staff have no further comments at this time and are happy to answer any questions from committee. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ms. Walker. And it's the applicant or applicant's agent here, and I believe he is.
Yeah, the agent and owner are both here.
Yes.
So in comes Paul.
Good morning.
Good morning, Mr. Donaldson.
Okay, I guess I'm a little bit shocked by the 9 objections. I had discussions with 2 of the people, but the long and the short of it is the garage that I proposed is a long way from the driveway that services all these cottages. And all you'd have to do is go and look and see what I have done as far as putting a proper drainage ditch. The culvert from the Arnold property on the other side of the road that accesses all of these other properties. The drainage ditch runs over onto my property. And so what I've done is I've done a river rock drainage river. Put in a new culvert across the road, and then we dug a ditch over to the property on the other side of the bay with the permission of the neighbor who lives at the end of the point. So the drainage issues that were there before I bought the property have been extremely rectified. I've spent a lot of money on doing that. As far as, my proposed garage is 63 feet from the lot line, and the road isn't even close. The road is actually up closer to the right-hand side. I don't really have a site plan, but it's way up. So I'm close to 100 feet away from the road with the proposed garage. It's in a flat area, and yes, the area is prone to flooding, but where I'm putting the garage is not a problem. As far as the septic system goes, it was put in the far back corner of the property. It's a special tertiary system. It costs a lot of money. It costs about $80,000 to put in. It has special piping and stuff in it. It's the best system that can be put on the property. The garage is 80 feet back from the water, and as the planner has reported, there's a lot of trees between the garage and the waterfront where the beach is that aren't being cleared or aren't being touched. So the impact from the water or even from the driveway coming in of this garage on anybody's personal space or anything is it's totally, these letters are they've banded together as a group and wrote these letters, and I think it's just totally unfair, and their comments are not truth at all about how the property looks, about the drainage or the septic system. or that this garage would at all impact the drainage system of the whole property, or yeah, everything is so much better than it was when I bought the property. That being said, I'm prepared to do what staff would like to do with hiring a surveyor to mark the flood line of the property so that it's behind the flood line. And you know, the garage will be, as far as you know, I'm a local resident. I have a 3-car garage now. It's enough room for 3 cars, and you know, when you have snowmobiles and you have ATVs and you have tractors and other stuff, it's nice to be able to put that kind of stuff in a building like that, which is a long way from my existing house. Like I said, it's 100 feet from the road into the neighbor's property and is 80 feet from the water. So it's a very, very private spot and does not impact anybody at all. So I guess that's all I have to say.
Okay, thank you. And I will ask, is there anyone else wishing to speak in support of this application?
Tim Van Krusten's in here.
Pardon?
Should I bring him through? Tim Van Krusten.
Okay,
I'm here. I'm just in support of the application and just looking to see the outcome of the situation.
okay, very good. So if there isn't anyone else wishing to speak in support of this application, is there anyone wishing to speak in opposition to this application?
Mr. Harvey.
Okay.
Are you able to hear me?
Yes, we can, Mr. Harvey.
Thank you. Look, I'll be a little bit briefer than I was planning. Brevity's a virtue. I did have about 5 minutes of talking points, but I think Ms. Walker's covered off things in a great level of detail, so I won't repeat what she said. I would say that there were a number of submissions received before January 7th. The report says there weren't, but I understand that staff are limited and they came in kind of last minute, so they wouldn't have had the benefit of seeing those at the time of the report. With respect to the report, I just say, and I think it's been raised that while the pictures are helpful, we don't have a full survey of the property that includes things like propane tanks, septics, the proposed structure, and so on. So it's a little difficult to see where everything is in relation to the property as a whole, the floodplain, and so on. Figure number 4 in the photos of the property actually shows an undeveloped bay. I think it's important to note that that was severed off at the time the applicant purchased his property. And that will be developed this spring, and there will be another, I expect, 2-story, 2-slip boathouse and a cottage there. And I guess just finally, obviously, given the time of the year, it wouldn't have been possible for staff, but there are no photos from the lake looking back at the cottage. We're not going to repeat the history or go down a rabbit hole here, but when you look from the lake, a 4-slip boathouse with a deck 12 feet closer than the bylaw and a cottage 14 feet closer than the old footprint, certainly in my opinion, is out of sync with some of the surrounding cottages. And just to put it in perspective, if you look at our road, no cottage has more than 2 garages. Most have none. No cottage has more than a 2-slip boathouse. Most simply have docks. So that's why I think we're all kind of in a bit of a spin here as to why somebody needs a 5 cars worth of garage and a second story over it. Like, you know, as a general principle, I'm not objecting to anybody going from 10 to 11%. It's really with respect to the need and the density. The visuals, I'll let some of my other neighbors speak to that to keep my submission briefer. And I guess in summary, I really view this as being a series of backdoor minor variance applications put in relatively short order to achieve a major variance result, which is not in keeping with the spirit and intent of the bylaws, and which I rather expect would not have been approved had they both been submitted together at the time of the build as recently as 2018. So I would strongly object and hope the committee rejects the application in its entirety. Should you not, and should you have other, I believe you have other alternatives. Just before I get to those, one thing I would address with respect to Mr. Donaldson's comments, just yesterday I took photos between the road with the right of way and a septic tank, and there is standing water there now and a creek running through there. So while I agree with him, he has certainly helped ameliorate the issues on some of them on respect to the Donaldson side. There are still a lot of issues with respect to where the septic and the proposed structure will be located. So finally, I would just say if you do not object the application in its entirety, perhaps you could consider the following. We need a proper survey of the applicant's structures, which includes the things I mentioned, generator and so on, and the proposed structure. In addition to the floodline survey, a report which uses as a baseline date prior to the septic installation, which should contain a stormwater management report and erosion and sediment control plan, which should include the cumulative impacts should the structure be approved of both the septic and the structure that's being planned. And that should be of the property in the surrounding area. Until such report is submitted, and I appreciate staff that have requested something similar to that. I'm thinking we need some things in addition to that. A prohibition on all further types of fill from being placed in the low-lying area pending receipt of a satisfactory engineer's report. A clause untitled prohibiting the structure from having any accommodation, whether a two-story or single-story structure is approved. And I guess just as a fallback, I would say, when you look at the sort of the list of our objections, a fallback would be to restrict the proposed garage to a single story, which would help address the visual and overbuilding concerns, or better, restrict the proposed structure to a single story, single slip garage, which would help address overbuilding, visual, and footprint concerns. But obviously, our view is that this is completely unnecessary. It's an overreach and should be rejected in its entirety. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you very much, sir. And the next one.
Hello, thank you. Thank you for providing me with the opportunity to speak, and I will not speak as long as I was going to because the points have been covered. My name is Nancy Niblett. I have a cottage at 1532 Mortimer's Point Road, and we've been there for more than 25 years. I live at 130 Roxborough Drive, Toronto, Ontario, M4W1X4. I think I can speak for the people that spoke today or submitted their letters that actually Mr. Donaldson's cottage is really beautiful. And I think if it hadn't been so beautiful and he hadn't taken such care, we would have been more upset initially, but it's really nice. He's done a really good job. And I think he continues to try to do a really good job, but we have Mother Nature, and Mother Nature does its thing, or her thing. And we have to continue to be diligent about making sure that the water, because behind our road at 1532, it's higher. So it's going to come down. And because that's been an empty lot for a long time, I think water always goes to the lowest place, which is the lake. And because it's a bog, it's always been known as a bog. They've always been mosquitoes, and even more now. It's going to affect all kinds of things that have been already spoken about. If I could just make a couple of points about that. We believe, although the drainage, the sewer system, the water sewage system has been done in a very amazing way, I'm sure, because the rest of the property has been done very well. We believe that the water drainage system has already been affected by the water sewage system, so it's not just the water sewage system. Because of where it is, the water, the way that drains from above the north side of 1532, it's affected how it drains into the lake. The new structure will be directly adjacent to the water sewage system. As a result of this, the location of the water drainage system will most likely be additionally impacted. We're concerned that further construction on this site could lead to damage to the water sewage system as a result of erosion or subsidization of the land due to the compromised water drainage system. And if the integrity of the water sewage system were compromised, the water sewage system would drain directly into Lake Muskoka, potentially impacting the health of the lake, our family's health, property values, and we all know all these. things. I also wonder about the trees. Mr. Donaldson said there are lots of trees there. In fact, I think it's a beautiful, if you haven't seen Mr. Donaldson's cottage, I suggest that you go see it. It's lovely. But the trees, we've lived there for a long time. There aren't as many trees as there used to be. And I don't believe that any of the trees that are on the side of the lake, on the south side of the proposed structure will give any, unless he puts more trees in, won't shade or hide the new structure from the lake. Another point that's really important to me is that the property in question should be considered a biodiversity corridor, and any development should be subject to evaluating the impact on local wildlife, as the property is one of the few direct and significant access points for wildlife, including bear, deer, eastern fisher, and beaver, all of which have been seen to access the lakefront from the significant habitats north of Muskoka Road 1532. By further developing the site with the proposed structure, it would encroach upon 2 access points to Lake Muskoka for wildlife in this habitat. It's already impacted it, but we're okay for now. So these corridors are to the south, and the neighboring properties to the southeast and northwest, and to the bay facing. So in that exposure, the proposed structure is directly at the intersection of the 2 corridors that all these wonderful animals access the lake. Our whole bay, our whole road is mostly high. It's hard for the animals. This is the soft spot for the animals to get down there. We've all seen them. We're all cottagers who've been there for longer than I have been. And we're very, very loving how it is now. Mr. Donaldson's done a great job, but Mother Nature needs to be addressed. I think also we need to address the fact that the lot has been severed, and I'm sure the new neighbors are going to be great, and they want to start building, I believe, next summer. And so I think the initial variances that Mr. Donaldson requested, and nobody opposed as far as I can, actually I think there was one opposition, but it went through, that, sorry for my dog, now that the lot has been severed and the new property owners will certainly build, of course they will. And so I'm hoping, and I don't know this because I'm not conversant with how things work, but I'm hoping that it will be taken into consideration, the application for this variance, because we know now that the lot isn't going to be one lot. It's already severed. There's going to be another house right next door. There's going to be another garage right next door, all bordering on the already compromised land for, as we see that it's, even though all of the things that Mr. Donaldson has done have been really good, the water's still flowing, the water's still puddling. We've had floods. And so all of those things continue to be problems. And I also agree that the question of granting this variance to allow more building, the property in question already has a 3-car garage, a 4-slip boathouse, a 2nd floor considered living space in the main cottage. When I consider carefully the above, all the things we've mentioned, the points regarding local ecosystems, water pathways, biodiversity pathways, the integrity of Lake Muskoka, the road infrastructure, and I have to say that I oppose the granting of the request variance. And I know this sounds romantic, but I think we can all agree, you guys live there. We will eventually live there when we retire. This is a question of stewardship of most of our precious land on Lake Muskoka, and you can see what's happening. And I so appreciate all the things that you do at council to protect us. And to keep it good, because sometimes we lose our minds and we want to do things we shouldn't be doing. We must be fully cognizant of the environmental impact of what we build. We are stewards of this land for future generations, and we have no excuse to turn blind eyes, ignoring or dismissing what we already know is a precarious situation all around us. And I thank you for listening to my concerns, and also for the good job you're already doing as you look after us, as we try and look after the things that we love. So I do appreciate, thank you. And please go visit. His cottage is beautiful. It's really beautiful. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And the next one.
Nancy and Sally Goldberg.
Okay.
or not. Are you okay? I think the video hasn't kicked in yet. I wonder if I have to kick it in. Ask them if they can hear you.
Can you hear me?
Yes, yes, we can.
Ah.
Mrs. Roper?
We hesitated there because the computer said that we were still on mute.
Okay.
So we're set. My
Yes,
name
we
is
are.
Sally Roper. My mailing address is 7 Courtsfield Crescent, Toronto, M9A 4T1 if you care. I am co-owner of the road allowance adjacent to the Donaldson property and owner of a cottage farther along the road at number 18. And we have owned our cottage for 50 years. I won't take too much of your time, but I do have 4 topics I would like to mention. Most folks, including me, enjoy coming to Muskoka to see nature at its best. Pine trees, rock formations, and the beautiful lake. Driving in our scenic private road is one of the things I really enjoy. Adding a large 2-story garage near the road seems excessive and will interfere with my pleasure driving this road. Roadside buildings like the proposed 2-story garage can obstruct the sight lines for cars merging onto our 1-lane roadway. And this, to me, is a safety concern. In our early years in the area, the road behind the current Donaldson property was impassable at certain times of the year due to drainage problems. Several years of road work way back when resolved the problem, which was helpful because my mom was disabled and struggled to walk in the road with her 2 canes if the mud and so on didn't allow us to take in a car. The changes in drainage patterns since Mr. Donaldson began building his compound have caused the mud and ruts in the road to occur again. And I am now the old lady walking with a cane, and I'm concerned about my access to my very own cottage. For me, building huge homes with multiple garages for many cars is at odds with the beauty of nature, not to mention the rules that were set up by our township via the bylaws that direct building in the area. And for these reasons, I certainly oppose the requested variance.
I'm Nancy Roper, and I'm co-owner of a different property on the road, and I would like to speak as well, please. My mailing address is 7 Courtsfield Crescent in Toronto, M9A 4T1. The lot that I'm co-owner on is number 20, and I've been a cottager on the road for 50 years now. I also object to the variance for the Donaldson garage. I'd like to thank Ms. Walker for doing such a great job capturing the content of our letters. So I'm going to restrict my comments to just add a few extra little tidbits to what she had to say. As mentioned, we're concerned about the lot coverage being so high, and particularly being so high at 2 stories. And the variance seems very large. I think of a minor variance as being something that's done to solve a specific small problem to allow building to go forward, like adding a wheelchair ramp for somebody or working around a pretty tree, making a dock longer to allow a boat to come in a shallow water area. But I don't think of it as adding 600 square foot 2-story garage, particularly in a property that already has 3 garages and 4 boat slips and 2 stories all over. Regarding the flooding, we got an environmental expert to help us to understand that, and he showed us the flood plan. And I want to just make a note that on the flood plan, the property lines are not correct. So it's very hard to figure out where the actual flood line is. But we realized that if you shift the property lines to the proper place, then the new garage appears to be in the flood danger area. And so we thank Ms. Walker for requesting a detailed flood plan analysis and corrective response. My mom has spoken about the drainage problems. When we were little kids, we had very bad ruts there on the road. And fortunately, after 5 or 10 years with a lot of road work, we got rid of them. So that's why we're concerned that they're back now due to all the extra fill that's been added in and all the changes in the drainage patterns with the new construction at Donaldson's. I'm also concerned about visual impact because we have so loved our quaint little road where we just saw trees and nature on the way in. Now the trees have been thinned dramatically at Donaldson's. And then a 2-story garage is really going to block our views of nature as we go by. And then I also agree with the concerns about accommodation. The storage space may be becoming accommodation over time as time passes. And the multiple variances being combined, which create quite a large change overall, particularly in light of a property that had a tiny cottage before and now is going to have 2 families there with very large cottages, as we can see. So with this in mind, I really don't think that that garage should be built. I think there's plenty of stuff on that land already. And thank you for your time and your consideration of our opinions.
Okay, thank you very much. And the next one?
Marianne McCann.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
There. Hi there. My name is Marianne McCann, and my mailing address permanent address is 157 Glen Road, Toronto, Ontario, M4W2W7. I'm a co-owner of the property Unit 24 at 1532 Mortimer's Point Road. And I have, and my family have been cottagers coming up 48 years at the location. Everyone I feel has done an excellent job on covering the points so far. I really just want to be very short and say that we believe the submission was incomplete and that a stormwater management report and an erosion and sediment control plan by a licensed professional engineer to accurately determine the environmental consequences of this proposed structure must be submitted before any further alterations may commence on this site. And I think I want to keep it at that, and thank you for your time and consideration.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
And the next one?
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Chair, for giving me the opportunity to speak. My name is Jerry Leckerkerker. The address is 2 Old Mill Drive, Suite PH4 in Toronto, M6S0A2. Our cottage is on 1532, lot 14. I object to the variance proposed. For the past two springs, it has already been difficult to get past Mr. McDonald's driveway entrance towards our cottage at lot 14. Due to the construction of a large septic bed near or partly in the floodplain area, a large amount of fill was used. This has caused the natural flow of water to end up into a much smaller area before it eventually drains away into the lake, resulting in a wider area of standing water in the surrounding area, especially during spring runoff. And as Mr. Harvey has shown, that standing water is still standing there. Last spring, it was so bad, this sogginess created ruts about 6 inches deep in the shared laneway, which made it treacherous for us and our neighbors to the east to pass. It took 4 loads of gravel to fix this stretch of laneway after the spring thaw. The cost of it was borne by all our neighbors, not just Mr. Donaldson. Now it is proposed to build a 27 by 23 feet garage in the floodplain, which will further reduce the water storage capacity. The proposed site has already been increased in height by a large amount of gravel put in it in preparation for this building. The planning department staff during their December 15th visit may not have noticed due to the large snow cover at that day. In addition to the damage caused to the shared laneway, I am very concerned about the impact of the expanded swampy area created on the remaining trees in the immediate area. We all know how terrible the forest looks on both sides of Foreman's Road, just west of Mortimer's Point Road. We want to preserve the beauty of this area. Do we want to create even a small area looking like that at the corner of Donaldson's driveway and our laneway? I don't think. In conclusion, I oppose the construction of this structure on this area, which is entirely located in the floodplain, Lake Muskoka map 22, which will make this situation worse. And I would like to see the gravel put down recently, which is altering the makeup of this floodplain, removed. There's a couple of points I'd like to address as well. Mr. Donaldson just made points that the garage is a long way away from the laneway. Well, if you come down the laneway, you're looking straight at it. It's not that far away. The trees at the corner in the water will likely die, so it becomes even more visible. Also, Mr. Donaldson mentioned that he had done a lot of work on to get the water out of that area. Indeed, he did, but it has not been, something is wrong there because there is more water now than there ever was. As you can see on the pictures from Mr. Harvey submitted, the water is still standing there today. Mr. Donaldson also mentioned that the area behind the boat where the proposed garage is flat. I like to possibly contradict this, if I may. I went for a walk towards the boat yesterday, and let me tell you, there's a gully of about 5 feet deep, about 4 feet behind the boat, right after the septic bed. Thank you for your time and giving me the opportunity to speak.
Thank you very much, sir. And the next one.
Arnold.
Okay.
Yep. May I say something? I'm Diane.
Make it very, very quick. No, they're gone. Okay. Mr. Arnold?
Yes, good morning, Mr. Chairman and members of the committee. My name is John Arnold. I'm the authorized representative of B. Camille Arnold, who's the owner of the adjacent property, Unit 4 on 1532 Mortimer's Point Road. Our mailing address is 42 Fox Run Drive, Quislinch, Ontario, N0B2J0. I think most of the points that I might have addressed have been well made, and I wish to thank staff, by the way, for a fairly comprehensive report that was prepared. Unfortunately, we only received it a few days before this meeting, giving us scant time to really review it in detail. However, 2 points I'd like to make. We are the adjacent properties, both behind and beside the subject property. 2 items that I'd like to stress is the proposed structure will be clearly visible from our lower lawn and dock area. The boat that people have referred to is clearly visible from this property now. So the comment that the structure will be well hidden by trees, I think, is perhaps slightly overstated. The second item that I would like to stress is that in 2019, as we, I think, all remember, there was major flooding. That flooding rose to about halfway across our lower lawn, which is at the level of the proposed structure. The area that the proposed structure is going to occupy was flooded, and it was flooded for about a month. So that this is a personal observation. And again, we don't have an accurate floodplain survey, but from personal experience, we were underwater for a long time. So I think this has to have a major impact on any development in what I regard as a low, swampy, flood-prone area, which has always been regarded as such. For that reason, plus all the other reasons put forward so far, we oppose the minor variance being approved. Thank you for your time.
Thank you very much. Is there anyone else?
Peter Dye.
Okay.
Mute. Sorry, there you are. Can everyone hear me?
Yes, we can, sir.
Good morning, and thanks for your time. I'll be very brief. So I'm Peter Dye. DYE is my last name. I own 1532 Mortimer's number 10, which is has been referred to as the point by Mr. Donaldson. So I'll be very brief. Mine is, I'm not here really to get into all the points that have been made by others. My issue is more personal, obviously. I'm one of probably 2 or 3 cottages that shares the driveway, at least at the initial stage, with Mr. Donaldson to get into my cottage and access to my point. So the only thing I really honestly am concerned about from a personal level is that with all these references to potential flooding, that I still have access to my cottage. And we wouldn't be alone in that. There's 2 other cottages between us and the Donaldsons to get to the point where we share the driveway. As you know, there's been a bunch of references to roadway and ruts and so on and so forth. Those are for cottages that are on the other side. My cottage, to access my cottage, I have one way into my cottage, and that's between the proposed garage and the water. So I'm in between. That's my only way into the point. So, I would just want to make sure that anything and everything is done to confirm that there will be no flooding problems going forward. Otherwise, I don't get to my cottage unless I have another boat access. Okay, so that's the primary point for me. The secondary point I'll make, and I'll just say this respectfully, Mr. Donaldson referenced that he had consent from the owner of the point about a certain issue. I can't actually remember what he said. I didn't hear exactly what he said. I think he's referencing me. I don't know what he's talking about, respectfully. We've only had some email exchanges about certain things. I did email Mr. Donaldson in advance of this meeting, expressing my only concern being access to my cottage. He sent a very well-written, respectful email back to me saying there would be no issues. The only concern, again, I have is that if the flooding is real, then that makes it a real issue for me going forward. And that's all I have. Thanks very much.
Thank you very much. And the next one? We're done now. Mr. Donaldson, would you like to and that comment on the comments that you've heard?
Hi there. Can you hear me now?
Yes, I can.
Okay. Wow. First of all, I 2 years ago when we had the major flooding in Muskoka, yes, this property flooded. In fact, my driveway flooded. Mr. Dye's driveway goes right along the edge of the road, a sandy beach. And the person that gave me permission to dig the ditch, because I lowered the culvert across my driveway, and then I was able to hire somebody to come in and dig the ditch down lower so that it would flow into the north part of Lake Muskoka, the water, because it filled up over the years, was Mr. Walker, I believe, who's next door to me, and not Mr. Dye. as far as, you know, they're all concerned about the mosquitoes and stuff. And by me lowering the culvert and the ditch, I've lowered it 1.5 feet, and there's a lot less water than when I bought the place. And as far as I come straight down the hill into my driveway, I don't even turn left to go to the neighbors who are further in beyond. And as far as their comments about no trees, I mean, I haven't cut any trees in that area at all that would, like between the lake and the garage, there's no trees been cut. There is all kinds of trees. As they come down the hill, the drive there in this 1532 Morton Point Road, they don't even look in at where my garage is going to be. It's, you know, I guess I'm just, I'm a little bit, and I want to bring up another point about my existing home. The existing cottage was built 28 feet from the water. The front of my home is all back 50 feet from the water. The only place that it is closer is on the end towards the bay, where I have a setback of 35 feet, which I was allowed to have, and I had a small variance, but I was able to show how what I could build as compared to what I built was less obtrusive than what I could have built. And that's why I got the variance. And as far as the deck being closer, because the cottage was already 28 feet from the water, I was able to build part of my deck 28 feet from the water as part of a trade-off. So those were all things that were well planned. I thank I believe it was Mrs. Roper for her kind comments about my cottage. I think if the planners went there, there was no trees in front of the cottage that was built on the property. It was all cleared out. I have not cut any trees on either side of where that cottage was between the lake and up in the house. Yes, my house is a fairly large house, but it's black in color. It's not something that really sticks out. I think there's all these drainage issues and all this concern. I have my plan has been to finish fixing all of that so there won't be any standing water in that area. And as far as not allowing deer or beavers or whatever, my driveway comes right off of there. I'm going to raise the driveway up somewhat because my driveway does flood. It did flood when the water came up 24 inches, and that's a natural resources thing. I'm prepared to do what the township what planning has asked as far as mapping out where the floodplain line is. As far as whatever I have to do, I'm prepared to do. I just think the accusations are unfounded, and if any of you on the committee were to go and look at what there is there as far as tree cover, you would see there is a lot of tree cover between both the garage and where the existing driveway is that goes in to service all the neighbors' properties, and a lot of tree cover between where the garage is going to be and the lakefront. And they're talking about the fact that, you know, you have to remember this lot has 521 feet of real lake frontage, 400 feet straight line. It's not a small lot as far as that goes. So I think, I just think a lot of those comments are unfounded, and I have definitely made and plan to make the water system work better there than the way I bought it, because the way I bought it, it was an absolute mess. And I have spent a lot of money already on making it better. And I would like to get rid of the mosquitoes completely myself. And I haven't created more mosquitoes like they're saying. It's like, that's, yeah, it's not truth. So I'm not sure what else to say. As far as it's a 1.5 story garage with a very small storage area upstairs. It will be non-habitable space. There are no plans to put a washroom in the garage. It won't be. You know what? Many years ago, the township was going to change the rules on whether there could be story and a half garages, and it was put in a bylaw. And I appealed that bylaw based on the fact that, in the city of Toronto, they say, or different places, you can't have a basement apartment. But does that mean that you can't have a basement? So in this case, I don't care if it's registered and titled, that there can't be any living space, whatever you would like to do, but it is strictly for storage. And I'm prepared to do, as far as environmentally studies or whatever I have to do to make it comply with what the planning department has recommended. So, yeah.
Okay, thank you very much, Mr. Donaldson. Are there questions from the members? Yes, Mr. Quinn.
Address some of the neighbor concerns, and this is to the planning. If we had some type of site plan agreement or approval for the garage, would this give the township the right to look at and deal with a lot of the neighbors' concerns so that this could go ahead?
Who would like to handle that one? Yes, Mr. Sharp.
Through you, Chair Edwards. Thank you for your question, Member Quinn. Certainly, the property is zoned waterfront residential WR1 and is not automatically subject to the site plan control process. However, if committee is looking at considering approval of this application, a requirement for a site plan agreement could be imposed as a condition. Would need to be imposed for specific reasons. Normally, it's imposed to require tree plantings, but in this case, not only could it be imposed for that reason, but also things like stormwater management. So if committee wanted to see a stormwater management plan prepared by a qualified engineer, that could be undertaken, as well as, and as part of that process, I'm assuming that certain details like grading and drainage could be addressed. Mr. Donaldson also noted the possibility of the inclusion of specific wording or a provision in such an agreement that would speak to the upper level of the proposed garage not being habitable space. That's a bit unorthodox to require such a provision or wording in such an agreement. However, that is a possibility if committee is looking at approving the application as well. Hopefully that answers your question. Happy to elaborate if needed.
Well, I believe that this thing, if we don't get some controls in place, we'll get, go to LPAT or otherwise, he'll get, and we won't get any of the say to make the neighbors happy or deal with the mosquitoes. So if we could come up with some terms, I would support this if we could bridge this gap.
Okay, thank you. And Member Bottomsworth.
Thank you, Chair. I agree with Member Quinn. I think there was an awful lot of well said objections to this, and I think it is beholden to us to pay some attention to them. So I would, if a stormwater management plan and an engineer's report on flooding and how it can be mitigated and improved, certainly we have a willing applicant who is willing to do these things. But we do have to address these issues from the neighborhood. And if the site plan agreement that includes a clause that says no living on above this new structure, then I would support it.
Okay. Any other in that comments from anybody? Yes, Member Green. Sorry, we can't hear you.
I don't know why that is. Can you hear me
Okay.
now?
Yeah.
Can you hear me now? I went to the site and I saw a lot of this standing water. I mean, at this time of the year, a lot of these rivulets, if they're not receiving a lot of water, would be frozen by now. And these sort of rivulets were quite active. And I'm concerned about the comment that we're going to deal with mosquitoes. Can you get rid of the black flies? The thing is that bogs perform an ecological function. And I don't think the role of the engineer or the stormwater management consultant is to eliminate mosquitoes, because actually, mosquitoes are a sign that there's a lot of things going on in a particular area. And there was a lot of deer tracks headed from the garage site into the water. And I agree with the comments that the garage will be very visible from the lake. It's true that there's a lot of trees in that area that are still standing, but the average person will be able to see the garage from the lake because of the way it's located on sort of a thin piece of land. So I guess my concern is there was one neighbor that suggested that, or maybe there were two neighbors that suggested a couple of other studies be done. And I'm not sure whether they're the same as the ones that the planners have recommended. So I'd like to get some clarification on that. And the other thing I noticed was that when I got to the site, there were a couple of other cars parked nearer to the building on an area that I think was drier. And why could the garage not be put there? Why does it have to be where the boat is, where there's clearly natural processes taking place? So I'd like to hear from Mr. Donaldson as to why his garage couldn't be moved closer to the slope as it heads up towards his own his own cottage.
Mr. Donaldson, can you answer that?
Okay, well, I think I can answer that. I've just if you look at the site plan, the property really narrows down between my existing driveway, and you see the lot line that comes along the existing driveway, and then where the sandy beach is over in my bay where I am. So you wouldn't have any setbacks of 66 feet from the water for a garage. There's no space to do that. I get on the back facing the Dyes property, I guess you could, but once again, the garage would, because it's a slope, in behind where it says existing two-story cottage in my site plan, there's a slope there, and that slope would mean that the garage would be more than 20 feet high. We're just trying to put it out in a place that was less conspicuous, and I do find it less conspicuous where I have placed it. Not sure that there's a proper spot to put it up where the existing house is. Yeah, but as far as the bugs and the stuff, like I said, I mean, I've lowered the water table considerably because of what happened 2 years ago with the water coming up 24 inches on my docks. Hopefully that won't happen again with the new dam. So that's probably the best I can say.
Okay, thank you very much. Are there any other questions or comments at this time? Yes.
I agree with Member Quinn's suggestion that we do a site plan agreement that focuses on stormwater and grading. And then I could accept it.
Okay. Mr. Sharp.
Thank you, Chair Edwards. I just wanted to acknowledge Member Grogan Green's comment regarding the study. In this case, the property isn't identified as being within a deer wintering area. I would direct committee's attention to page 102 of the staff report, specifically figure 8, looks like the identified development envelope for the garage is within an area that's open and generally level, at least based on the photo. I would look to Ms. Walker to clarify if needed. I think we are comfortable moving forward without any type of scoped environmental impact study. Certainly that is something that committee could consider if that is a concern.
Yes, Member Green.
Personally, I would go for that because I mean, this floodplain mapping came out very recently. I think it was February of 2019. And really, if we don't respond to what we know in the floodplain mapping, what was the point? I think, you know, we know a lot more about the importance of these things and we need to pay more attention to them as well. And the overwhelming objections based on flooding, et cetera, and I just feel that we need to look at this a little harder and we need to get the right people involved. And I'm not sure engineers are the right people.
Yes.
Through you, Chair Edwards. Thank you, Member Brogan Green, for your comments. I would note that based on staff's recommendation, the flood line, as it's been identified by the district and their engineering consultants, will be addressed through that condition. So we've recommended that the identified development envelope be staked and identified by an Ontario land surveyor, and that the identified flood line be identified by a surveyor. If it so happens that the proposed garage and that envelope is within the flood line, the official plan does permit buildings and structures to occur within a flood fringe area, provided that certain requirements can be met. So those are addressed in policy B 8.4 of the township's official plan. So I think, you know, we're confident moving forward that that can be addressed through the recommended condition.
Okay, I think what I'll do is I'll read the resolution, and we'll have comments after. Moved by Member Creaser, second by Member Green. Be it resolved that application A 5620 Donaldson to permit the construction of a two-story garage with the following variances being granted. 1, to permit a lot coverage of 6,900 square feet or 11% of the lot area 200 feet from the high water mark. 2, to permit a lot coverage of 6,900 square feet or 10.7 of the entire lot. These variances are granted subject to the plan attached to notice of decision and hereby subject to the following condition. 1, an identified development envelope be staked and floodline surveyed by an Ontario land surveyor, and that if the envelope is within the flood line, that a satisfactory technical report addressing section B84 of the township official plan be prepared by a qualified professional and implemented to the satisfaction of the township. So I think, and this approval shall remain in effect for 3 years from the date of decision. Any questions or comments? Yes, Mr. Quinn. Sorry, we can't hear you.
Hello, can you hear me now?
Yes, I can.
So I talked about the potential of a site plan, but maybe that's, you know, merely a stormwater management, whatever the planners feel necessary to deal with, you know, a number of the neighbors' concerns. I'm happy to go with either or, but we need to have one more condition in there.
Okay, Mr. Sharp, then what would you add, if anything?
So I think if I'm hearing and based on what I've commented recently, I would just indicate that we can require a site plan agreement for the stormwater management plan, including details with respect to site grading and drainage, and that the upper level can be restricted in terms of its ability to be used as habitable space.
Okay. Thank you. I'll let you add that, please. we'll just add that in.
Would you like me to read it?
Yes, would you please read that? Thank you. Yes, yes. We have just added the following in that condition for the members.
Okay, committee, I've added the following condition. Condition number 2 states that a site plan agreement be entered into along with securities requiring a stormwater management plan, including details in regard to site drainage and grading, and wherein the applicant/owner will agree not to utilize the garage as habitable space. This agreement shall be registered on title.
Thank you. Any questions or comments? Does that satisfy the committee? Okay. Thank you. All those in favor? That is carried. Reasons?
We've put in place some steps to mitigate the concerns of the neighbors.
And I'll just say to the neighbors and that we have listened to you and we've tried to address most of your problems. Sight lines and everything else like that are basically from the front of the property. So, but I think that this will help and that mitigate the problem. Thank you. And the next application is A 5720 Moore.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I believe this is the last application on your agenda today.
Yes.
And this is file A5720 under the name Moore regarding the property at 1212 Dawson Road. The application A5720 is a request for variances for an extension to an existing legal non-complying sun deck together with new stairs and landing. The variances requested are 7 feet for the sun deck where 15 feet is required, 5 feet for the stairs and landing where 15 feet is required, and variances to recognize the existing lot area of the subject property at 10,000 square feet. Mr. Chairman, notice of this hearing was provided on December 22nd last year, and the notice requirements of the Planning Act have been satisfied. In response to that notice, the committee has received the following reports and/or correspondence. You do have the detailed planning report at page 116 of the committee agenda. You have an email dated January 7th from Heather Wilson, the applicant, just confirming that the gazebo and ramp that is noted on page 2 of the staff report, which is page 117 of your agenda, have been removed from the property. We also have by a letter dated January 4th, 2021 from Sonia Watmore at 1210 Dawson Road, which is immediately to the west of the property, stating they have no objections to the minor variance application. Mr. Chairman, members of the committee, briefly, we've submitted a detailed planning report, noting that it's at page 116 of your agenda. We've reviewed all the relevant plans and policies, conducted an analysis with respect to the application's compliance with the 4 tests of section 45 of the Planning Act, and have provided our opinion with respect to the application that's before you. Mr. Chairman, members of the committee, we have no objections with the approval of application A5720. Mr. Chairman, certainly willing to answer any questions that the committee has.
Thank you very much, Mr. Crown. Is there anyone here wishing to speak on this? Is it Heather Wilson or the owner?
Yeah.
Okay, you want to bring them in,
Heather
please?
Wilson is coming in.
Good morning, Chairman Edwards and members of the committee. I'm here on behalf of the Moores, Brian and Barbara. Oh, I'm sorry, my name is Heather Wilson Consulting, 1014 Manitoba Street, Bracebridge, P1L 1W9. Brian and Barbara bought their cottage, I think it was around 2001, 2002. There had been a previous application made on this property by an owner, a previous owner, for a deck that was turned down. That application was turned down based on, I guess, several things, but one of them was objection from the neighboring property owner, the Dawsons directly next door. That application was something totally different than what Mr. and Mrs. Moore are proposing or have built. And the Dawsons have no objection. I did send in the letter from Sonia Watmore, but I also sent in a letter signed by the other property owners in the area, including the neighbors directly beside the Moores, the Dawsons. Unfortunately, this deck was built in 2019. The Moores ran into a problem. They needed to repair their decks. They were in disrepair. And as well, there was a set of stairs that went along the side of the cottage underneath where the walkway is now. That set of stairs was narrow. The terrain at the bottom of the stairs was not good for anyone trying to easily access the rest of the property. So they decided they would like a walkway from the back deck to the front deck. they couldn't get a contractor in this area at the time to get the thing built when they needed it built. So they hired some contractors from out of town who assured them that no permits or anything would be required to do this. And based on that advice, the Moores had them build the decks and make the changes to them. It wasn't until I got to the property last summer and asked them about the construction that they found out that the construction there was not legal and that a permit would be required, and to get a permit, of course, a variance. So that is basically how it all ended up being there. The addition to the deck really is only the walkway between the two, the rear and the front deck. And that's to give a nice, easy access to the property owners and the people who are visiting them from the back of the cottage to the front without having to traverse the hill. It's not as close as the existing is. It's visually appealing. The neighbors have no objection to it, and we would respectfully request that you approve this application. If you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer them. Thank you.
All right, thank you very much. Is there anyone else to speak on this?
The owner,
And the owner? Okay, thank you.
Brian Miller.
Okay, Brian Moore? Yes, Mr. Moore? I see your hand up. Can you turn your audio on, please? Mr. Moore, can you hear me? Mr. Moore, can you hear me? We can hear some noise in the background, but you're not speaking, sir.
That one right there. Yeah. There. Hello?
I hear Heather Wilson, but I don't hear Mr. Moore. He's still on mute.
I've asked him to unmute.
Pardon?
I've asked him to unmute.
Yes, on mute. Mr. Moore, on your screen, there should be a microphone. It looks like it has a cross through it. If you unmute, then you will be able to speak.
Keep on asking him, but he's not seeing it. Just carry on with it.
Okay, Mr. Muir, you hear us? Ms.
Hi.
Wilson? Ms. Wilson, can you hear me?
Okay. Okay, thank you.
Okay,
I'm sorry. They're having some technical difficulties getting through. They just really wanted to reiterate what I had to say.
okay, I think they had phoned you, did they not? Because I could hear a voice in the background, Ms. Wilson.
That was
Right.
me talking to them on the phone.
Okay, can you put the phone up and then have them speak through the phone to
I've
your
hung
audio?
up now.
Okay,
But really, they just wanted me to say that they do apologize for the fact that work got done without a permit. They tried, they just got bad advice. And that really it's a safety, part of it is a safety concern because the terrain underneath that walkway is so rough and steep. The entire lot is quite steep until you get down near the water. And really, it's it really was done to make the property more usable and the decks more usable.
mm-hmm. Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Other questions from the members? No, no questions?
You haven't gone to the neighbors.
Pardon?
You haven't gone to the for or against.
Oh, yes. Is there anyone else wish to speak in support or anyone in opposition? No. Sorry, I did get a nodding heads before, so I didn't, but I should have asked. Okay, moved by member Bosworth, second by member Quinn. Be it resolved that A 5720 Moore to permit as an as-built sun deck extension, new stairs and new landing with the following variances being granted. 1, to permit a sun deck extension 8 feet from the side lot line. 2, to permit the stairs and landing 10 feet from the side lot line. And 3, to permit the sun deck, stairs, and landing to be enlarged on an undersized lot. These variants are granted as shown on the plan attached to the notice of decision. This approval shall remain in effect for 3 years from the date of decision. Any questions or comments? All those in favor? And that is carried. Okay, thank you. And the reasons, support of the neighbors, minor in nature.
Yep, minor.
Okay. And I don't believe there's any other business, Mr. Sharp. I think that is just about it. Just double check it. Okay, so next resolution is moved by member Quinn, second by member Green. Be it resolved that the meeting adjourned at 11:59 a.m. All those in favor? And that is carried. And thank you very much.